move it right away, right?
All right, it is now 5:34. If we can call roll to establish that we do have a quorum, I would appreciate it.
Mr. Castro,
Absent.
Ms. Rosa Centeno Hinojosa,
Present,
Mr. Avila,
Present.
Mr. Geisler,
absent,
Absent.
Mr. Kaiser,
Present.
Mr. Sanchez,
Present.
Mr. Gomez,
Present.
Mr. Somerville,
Absent.
absent.
and Mrs. Escobedo.
Here. Present.
You do have a quorum.
That's it, we have a quorum, thank you very much. I'm sorry, I'm trying to deal with a top quality low bid pen that is not working. All right, here we go, I gotta know. Always have a backup. Former public employee. So, if we can kind of review the minutes, there are some
I went,
corrections.
yes,
There's
I
some
went through
errors.
them, I was
Yeah.
gonna tell you.
There's some-
On some of them from Mr. Avila, it just says Avila second.
It says Avila make the motion and Avila seconded,
Yes.
so
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
we'll go ahead and correct that.
Okay, so we can
I think-
correct those.
I think it's done twice, if I'm correct.
2 or 3 times. 3 times to be
Three times?
corrected, yes.
I saw it twice.
Oh, yeah, I see it
Yeah.
here. Okay, we'll go ahead and change that.
Excellent. So do we want to?
We'll table
All right.
make a motion to table the approval of minutes for the next meeting until it's been corrected.
Yeah, change the
All right.
I
motion.
second.
There's a motion and a second. And this time, Mr. Avila did not motion and second. So, all those in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign? All right. Now, I would ask if possible, we could move up 2 items. Well, where is it? Hold on. I wonder I couldn't see anything. Oh, my glasses here. All right. Let's, if we could, well, yeah, let's just move up the whole thing, item 6, and we can have a motion and a second to move up the action items.
I so
and-
move that we.
From letter A, right?
Letter A,
From letter A to letter F.
letter F, all of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The
Yes.
6 items to be moved up.
Second
I so
motion.
move.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. It is passed. Thank you. All right, I believe we have our, a representative of the city attorney's office with us today. Would you mind stating your name for the record?
Yeah, Christian Rosas, for the record, Assistant City Attorney.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, sir.
I believe you're hopefully gonna address some of the more of the questions that we might have and that we came up with at our last meeting.
Sure.
You're good over there? You don't-
Well, I can move.
Wherever you feel comfortable.
Are these?
No, there's
No,
no.
okay.
Wherever y'all want me.
If he's done, don't-
Yeah,
No,
I
no.
don't.
I'm not that mean, so
Pellizco.
just.
So what is the item, sorry?
Yes.
Well, we had a list of items, and unfortunately,
Wherever you guys want to start
I
with
know.
the, it was the attendance and
Correct.
the financial report.
Yes.
And the social media one.
social media.
I don't know where you all want to
We had,
start off.
on the attendance, we had concerns.
Yes, so I don't know where you all want to start off with.
Mr. Avila, you have a question?
Mr. Chairman, if I may lead on that one, on one of the objects, on one of the situation discussions that we're up for legal. Thank you for being here, first of all, sir. We did request this meeting to have a legal representative due to the fact that, as you're well aware, we are a appointed sources from our city council, from our city government. We're not here because we just want to sit here and, you know,
We get paid for it, no?
be funny or we don't get paid. We don't even get a token of appreciation of a luncheon like the rest of the committees do, but that's beyond the point. And I'm just being straight out, because the other committees do get, you know, and I've seen it because I've been here. You know, right now I have another one, I have the county. There's one of my former colleagues right there. Every time we go to the meetings, and I'm not saying that because we're hungry or because of anything. No, I just want y'all to understand, you know, that we're here doing our best by being present. I'm taking off 2 hours prior to work to be here, but just to complete with my obligation. And that's the way I feel they should comply with us.
I
Now,
ride the bus to be here. They bring me, and I'm here.
one of the questions that I did have was, why is it that it's been taken, not necessarily against me, but it's been marked as an absent, an unexcused absent, when a relative of yours passed away, I did notify, and still it counts, and it still counts against me. I don't see, is there any policy that says that it'll still run, that it'll still count as an absent?
So I guess to answer your question, so that they had the ordinance that they passed last year where they started with the 3 absences
Correct.
rule. So that ordinance specifically says that it doesn't matter if it's an excused or an unexcused absence. And so that ordinance has recently been revisited this past August, I think.
Correct.
And so now it's 4 absences, but it's still excused or unexcused. And so it doesn't, the reason for the absence doesn't matter. But that's not really, that's a council policy. That's not something we just enforce. And so I think the idea was by increasing it to 4, which is if you meet 12 times a year, that's a third of the meetings. It gives some flexibility because things will come up. And so, to allow for that. But other than that, that's kind of what I have.
So it does count?
Yeah, and it resets at the end of the calendar year, so it's not like.
Correct.
So basically what we're, and excuse the interruption, but, so basically what we're working with as true volunteers, because as is established, we're not paid for this, we're appointed as representatives of the council and all that, but we have to abide by a stricter set of rules than the people that appointed us. Is that correct?
Well, they have their own rules dictated by the charter. Again, the decision of have a more strict or more flexible rule is not something that I have any control over, and so.
But
No, we're not asking, I'm just asking for clarification. Because of course, there are circumstances when they have excused absences
Yeah.
and whatnot. And of course, you can get into the constitutional arguments as to what does constitute carrying out your duties
Yeah.
and as an elected official and as appointed officials and whatnot. So I understand all that, but what we then, I guess, have to deal with then is that there are no such things as excused absences. There is no such thing as a hardship. There is no such thing as you tried to get here, but, oh, you were in an accident or whatever. It's too bad, you got four strikes, you're out.
As written, that's what it says right now. That's
Okay.
not to say it can't be changed, but that's today.
Mr. Rosas, I have 2 concerns. I am usually never absent, and my old colleagues can attest to that, okay? They had, 2 other times I called Mr. Villarreal, he can tell you, is there going to be a meeting? And he said, it doesn't look like we're getting a quorum, correct, Mr. Villarreal?
When, last year, as when we would cancel, we haven't canceled since the new ordinance kicked in.
It was during the time that we were still canceling, that's,
Oh, no, these absences have nothing to do with those.
because if I recall, I was not absent, and then one time, he called me about 3 o'clock in the afternoon that we were going to have a meeting. And I said, okay, if you send a bus for me, I'll be able to go because that's my reliable transportation. Well, unfortunately, they couldn't send a bus, so there was no way I could get to the meeting. But they still marked me absent.
As I understand it, and forgive me for interjecting again, as I understand it, as it is written, there is no real world or other world reason that if we do not get here, by I believe we're given 15 minutes or whatever to start the meeting, but if we do not get here to the meeting and be physically present, there is no other, well, there's nothing other than to mark us as absent.
But
Whether we
it
try or
happened
not.
before, Mr. Kaysen.
Yes, ma'am, I understand,
Good.
but what we're hearing is
What
that.
we're hearing now.
Yes, is that the city council has decided that this is the route that it should take with the volunteers that
Mhm.
are trying to help out with the.
And then the other one, and that's when you all said, you all voted so they wouldn't mark me absent, right? That's what I
But
understood.
we are apparently
It
not
was
allowed to
voted
do
on,
that.
it was voted on depending on advice from legal, remember? It was, well, we're gonna ask legal what happens if we were responsible for transportation, remember that?
Yeah, but even then, from what I'm hearing, no matter who's responsible, whether
Exactly.
if we had a tornado, if we have any sort of emergency that happens, there is nothing that's in there that says
You're
you have an
excused.
excused absence.
I think that that's very unethical.
Is there
Well,
an
then-
appeal process to any of these?
I mean, they have to bring us in a stretcher, we have to be here, bottom line.
What are the alternatives?
Well, right now, I guess before this last revision, I guess there was what some called a loophole, which was you could get reappointed, but I think they tried to close that loophole by, if you are, I guess, removed from being on a committee because of absenteeism, then you can't get reappointed till the expiration of the term.
You know, that hurts me so much, Mr. Rosas, because I do it with all my heart, and I put all my knowledge and all I know to help this committee to go forward and do everything we're to do to help our community. Because I'm primarily important, my primary importance in this kind of committees or boards is to help the community. That's the bottom line. And this is what I have tried to do for the 4 years that I've been here.
And so these meetings, were they regularly scheduled meetings or were they special?
They were regularly scheduled meetings. We've
Okay.
never had a special meeting, if I recall correctly.
And the meetings were voted on at the beginning of the year, so for every second Tuesday, they've been set for the whole year,
Okay.
pretty much.
One meeting, I do accept responsibility. I don't know why I didn't see the correct date. Instead of seeing it on a Tuesday, I saw it on a Wednesday, and I came to Wednesday, and the meeting had been a day before. That was my error. But the other ones, like I tell you, what happened. So, and I feel real bad, because I don't want no one to think I'm an irresponsible person, and that I don't care what I do, and that I don't care for what I am doing, especially for the people. And particularly that I am a user of this service. And I'm very, very satisfied with the service that they provide for us. Yeah, we have ups and downs like we all do, but all in all, they do provide a good service. And all in all, I've used it for many years already. It's been almost 10 years. And I am very satisfied with the service. But after doing this, of what they're doing, that I supposedly was absent 4 times, I don't agree with that, because I was not absent 4 times. That's the only thing I can say. And if anyone else has to say something.
Like I had mentioned, and I told Mr. Avila, our videos are posted on YouTube, so you can feel free to see who was and wasn't here. When we did the attendance, all the recordings were checked to double check. I'm not gonna bring a report that says absent if you haven't verified the absence. So all the absences have been verified. 1, sign-in sheets, 2, videos, 3, recordings. So we have 3, we try to go through as many verifications as possible before we bring forward.
I understand, Mr. Herrera, but I don't understand, and now I am understanding that that's what the ordinance is now, but before it happened.
Oh, no, that's right. All these are in this calendar year. So they pertain, the ordinance has been in effect since May of last year.
28.
Well, remember I had provided you guys a copy of the ordinance, and you know,
Right.
and back then, before the ordinance, if there was no quorum, we could let y'all know there's gonna be quorum, and a lot of community.
Remember
council
for 1
show
year,
up.
we had meetings, we had about 4 meetings
Yes.
1 year, and you're correct. I mean, you
Yes.
can correct me if
Yes,
I'm
that's what
wrong.
I'm saying. No, before the ordinance, yes.
Because the other members were not here. Why? We don't know.
And like I mentioned and like Kristen just mentioned, we don't make the rules, we didn't make the rule, we just have to enforce them.
I understand,
So-
and I clearly understand. I was an elected official, and I know what it takes, and I understand. So now you're saying to us that from August on, that's when the new,
No, it's been on since May of last year. From August is just an amendment where they added it to 4
Okay.
absences.
Okay.
But the ordinance has been in effect since May of last year. So, and then these absences are actually from January to now, because every calendar year they reset. So anyone who has like up to 4 absences, it's this calendar year, not counting anything from before January.
Okay.
It's January to now.
Call for the call for the question. So what you're actually saying right now then, and by all means, with all due respect, like she said, as a former official, Commissioner Centeno, what you're saying is she already has 4 absences, so she's already considered as being out? Is that what you're stating?
Pretty much.
Yeah,
No,
that's
is that what you're stating, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
She does have 4 absences. First one would be January 8th, April 9th, May 21st, and July 9th.
Well, I think something that, if I may, Yesenia brought up, could we explore a process to be able to, I guess, we have to bring it to council to
I mean, I guess
appeal,
that's-
perhaps?
We would need to, and correct me if I'm wrong, because, but we would need to bring this up to council for consideration. Council would have to have 2 sponsors for the
Well, not
amendment.
necessarily, I mean, they can have, their own, they can either put it under their items, however the procedures work, as far to propose an ordinance amendment, because that's kind of how this came to be, the bump from 3 to 4. I think Councilmember Torres,
Yeah, because he's the council member that appointed
Yeah.
me. You know, and that's what makes me feel bad, you know, because I'm not an irresponsible person. I'm not a person that doesn't care for my community. That's why I've been here, you know, diligently trying to do what we have to do.
I do have a question. Is it after 4 or more than 4?
4. At
4.
right?
At 4.
Remember, so last time, remember, we had said Ms. Centeno, pending legal.
What I'm asking is, how is it written? How
Exactly.
is the?
How is it law?
for failure to attend 4 regularly scheduled meetings.
Failure to attend 4. 4. It's 4.
Then I do so move to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to go ahead and bring it up to council
I mean, would that be a motion as a committee?
as for us, and then we put, if I'm recalling, if I'm saying it correctly, then it would be to council for them to bring it up to them to see if they would want to even consider putting it on the agenda. Am I correct?
I don't know how you would.
Yeah, I mean, how it gets to them is, there's
That's
multiple
another
ways to
story.
get to it. I mean, you can approach your individual council member, you can vote as a committee, that is kind of up to your discretion.
Okay, so, what I'm understanding, Mr. Avila, as saying is, you would like to do this formally as saying that the PAC
The PAC committee would like to put it, bring it up to their
bring it up
attention,
as a formal request on behalf of everybody on the committee.
unless anybody else has, other objective to it.
I mean, I guess the only thing I would say is, we're just being, I guess, fair, since we didn't give the same opportunity to Ms. Martinez and Ms.
Now, you're bringing up some people that came
Remember,
up before the
no, they were
ordinance.
forfeiture, too.
Before the ordinance.
No, it was during the ordinance. Remember, we kicked them out for the 3 absences?
I thought that was before.
No, it was for the ordinance. That's why they were, that's why they were
Yes,
forfeiture.
but this ordinance now that we're dealing with.
It's the
has
same
4.
one, yeah.
No, it's not.
Well,
And
exactly,
by
but we
bringing
didn't
up
give them
something
a fair
prior
chance
to-
to bring it up.
Bringing up something prior to this ordinance is almost kind of dancing on the line as far as I'm concerned. Because what we're dealing with is this ordinance, because that's what we can deal with. We cannot deal with the previous ordinance and the actions that were taken prior to that.
I mean, ultimately, it's a recommendation from this committee, and council, in their discretion, can choose to entertain it or not. And so what happened with the other people, that's
That's all right. I did.
And if they have issues with that, they'll discuss
Yeah.
that.
It's over with.
Yeah.
Now, just as clarification, Mr. Chairman, we're not asking for all 4, I think just the one that Ms. Rosie is,
Well, if we
I don't
can, well,
It was
that's
too
the whole thing,
early.
is it to appeal in this case, to appeal the absences so that there is an excused absence? Or are we saying reconsider, because we may not, from what I understand, we may not be able to deal with anything?
That
Because
was-
the ordinance says 4 and done. It's not 1 and done, but 4 and done is what the ordinance says. So if there's 2 different things, I guess to clarify the motion that you're making, is it to look at absences that have happened since the ordinance was put in place? or are we looking
And
at
actually-
trying to amend the ordinance itself?
And would it matter if the ordinance, I guess the amendment kicked in August, prior to that it was 3, so prior to the amendment, she already had 3, but it was just overlooked because it was never brought up as to looking into the committee's attendance.
But I mean, that's, I think once they introduced the conversations of extending it to 4, I think, I mean, we didn't enforce that portion because we already knew that council's intent was to increase it to 4, and so I think ultimately it's a recommendation of this committee, and the council can decide if they want to make an amendment of the ordinance, if they want to include certain causes to be excused absences.
Yes, and I.
Sorry.
I'm guessing what we're looking for, and this is just me thinking and trying to see what we're saying, is to see if some wording or language could be put in there that says that if you've got some sort of illness or a death in the family or something like that, that there would be,
Some leeway on it.
yeah, if that's the case. I mean, there used to be that kind of language, but that was back when we were under our bylaws. A while back, but now I don't know how to, I mean, obviously what we're saying is that if it's in place right now and there is no appeals process, there is no way to do it, the only thing that we can do is say, how can we move forward from this point? Because, yeah, the reappointment, you said the reappointment is not there, is that correct?
Correct. I think it was there, I mean, that option existed there before.
But here's the question, you mentioned term, since we don't have terms anymore.
Well, it's for the term of the appointing council member.
Well, all I can say, they don't want me, I'll just go. What else can I tell you, Mr.
Well,
President?
the only thing I would like, just for the record, just to be on the safe side, you know, I understand completely what Mr. Rivera is bringing up, but then again, we just need to be careful from right now and on, because since he's already brought it up to our attention, then with all due respect, I said, then, you know, just, I mean, don't make any motions or do anything, because then we're gonna come back and kick us back, that knowing that you were already striked out per se, and I don't mean to say it in a disrespectful way, but that way we won't, you know, break any policies or any laws
Correct.
within the
You
meetings.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now you would be considered a member of the public.
Correct.
Is that correct, or is that, I mean, I'm asking for guidance here.
Well, I think, I don't have all the answers unfortunately, but I think normally, when your term, like, the policies and procedures manual talks about when your term expires, you can serve as a holdover while somebody else is appointed. So technically, I think there would be an opportunity for you to continue to serve in a holdover capacity up until somebody is,
I think that his term will end in December, right?
I believe so.
Mr. Torres ends in December until he gets reelected.
No.
no, until they find an
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
But he would serve until.
She would serve until Mr. Torres appoints someone else.
Until Mr. Torres
Yes.
appoints
Appoint
someone
someone
else.
else,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I'll talk to Mr. Torres and see what he decides. If he wants to reappoint me, it's up to him, and if he doesn't, that's fine, you know, I'm willing to serve the committee in the best of my ability and the best I know how, because I've done it, it is not the only committee I have served with, and I've done it throughout lifetime, and I'm willing to continue doing it, but, you know, it just hurts because I know what happened in 2 occasions, you know. So, what else can I say?
So we got clarification and everything on that?
Except we do have a motion, but we don't have a second.
I second it.
As a whole, and she still is a Republican.
So the motion is that we discuss it with city council.
Well, if she's gonna be able to stay until,
Oh, hold on, aren't you?
We understand that it's
that would just,
until he is not in office, you know, or until he reappoints someone. That's fine with
we
me.
can recant the motion and just leave it as is, because if she's still able to serve, there's, you know, we'll leave it at that. We can individually talk to our councilmen
Okay.
that are appointed and let them know exactly how we feel about this,
because generally,
you know.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
But normally, the staff liaison, once you hit the required number of attendance, they send the council member a letter letting them know that
That they need to-
they've reached the attendance limit and to reappoint somebody else. And so, I don't want you to not take any action thinking that, they may be prompted to reappoint somebody, and so if y'all wanted to have that conversation with the council or with the individual council members, I'm not gonna necessarily discourage that.
Okay, I think I know what you're saying. As it stands right now, Ms. Centeno is still able to be here,
Until Mr. Torres
until Mr.
is
Torres appoints
someone, or until he leaves office for this term.
No, the first person, the first part. The
Yeah.
second,
I'm sorry?
up until somebody else is reappointed,
Oh, okay.
not the second
Okay,
portion.
okay.
Okay. All right. And also, for further clarification, it's for, no matter what
Happens.
happens, if you're not here.
You can
But
say-
the good thing is, and I'm gonna give you all a loophole that I just thought of right now, you can come in, sign in, and leave. There's nothing that says that you can't do that, is that correct?
That may be correct, yes.
Well, I mean, you are legal, you gotta
Yeah,
let us know, is that correct or not?
Well,
And good thing we've never had an issue, so like, that's never been an issue where, oh, you're absent because you left. It's always been an issue because you're not here 100% at all.
No, what I'm saying is you
But
can't
it
be
can
absent.
become an issue now.
Because now you can be here, wait for roll call, and then leave.
You can split, yep.
Unless you
So-
lose a
You were
quorum.
present.
Unless you lose a quorum and then just.
That's
Well,
where I was
no,
going
if
on.
we lose a quorum, we lose a quorum. We have a quorum.
Oh, yeah, no, the
the
absence
quorum
statement
is
just
held,
lose a quorum.
everybody's present. If you lose the quorum during the meeting, people here.
But you were present. That is the
Exactly.
bottom line.
Otherwise, you couldn't be counted out.
So,
Whoever
yeah,
works
get
best.
the ambulance to bring you here, sign in, wait for 5 minutes, and then take off. All right, now that I've been facetious and gotten that out of my system, do we have any other
I
of
know-
those kinds of questions for the attendance?
I guess I kind of, oh, okay.
No, just the attendance, I
Attendance,
just want to make sure that that's, okay, the next item.
Because I know I wrote y'all's concerns, so I know the next time was on the financial report, like, or what, or I guess not just the financial report, what you can and cannot do or ask for. I know Mr. Avila mentioned that last time.
Yes, what we can ask for in terms of if we're asking for information, if we're asking what kind of information can we ask for, and what kind of information is outside our scope or purview.
Essentially to re-clarify.
I'll give you a question.
Are you ready for this one today?
Well, I mean, the thing is, I'm never gonna be ready for the question and then interrupt me if you want. I think when it comes to requests for specific information, it's all gonna be somewhat on a case-by-case basis, because you, as appointed committee members, get to ask for things that are, reasonable and necessary for you to fulfill your duties. And so, I guess it all has to tie back to what the ordinance says the role or the scope of the committee is. And so if your request is related to and is necessary for you to fulfill that duty, then staff, I think, has a responsibility to do the best they can to provide that information, because you are here to advise council and also to advise them on how to make the system work better. But there may be things that may be relevant to El Metro in and of itself, but maybe not necessary to fulfill that portion. And so those types of requests can be handled differently, but not as part of a request as a committee member. I mean, as a member of the public, you still would have a right to request those things, but it's not something that you necessarily get as being a member of a committee. And so that's why it's kind of tricky to say, well, you can ask for A, B, C, but not D and E, because it ultimately is going to come down to what is it that you're asking for, what the context is, and how does this relate to your responsibilities.
Who could we get to arbitrate that? Or who would we direct, if we do have, let's say we have a request and we have a difference of opinion, obviously,
Yeah.
because we think, okay, yes, it is, staff thinks, no, it's not, right? So who would be who would we turn to say, this is what we got, and can we or can we not?
I guess we don't have a procedure for that yet, so I guess if I had to pick somebody, I would say not me, but I can try to, I can try to mediate and facilitate, because the whole point of this is you are taking time out of your day as you said, to serve on this committee, and so we're not trying to make things, the whole point is not to make it difficult for y'all to do what you've been tasked to do. I guess the concern with staff is sometimes that maybe y'all going into areas that they feel is not appropriate for the committee to go into, and so those are kind of the conversations that need to be had. And I can certainly, talk with, because, they also have their own management company, and so it's a lot of moving parts as to who would be the person to mediate this discussion. I would say initially you could take it with the department director. There's always city management and the council, and so I don't know at what level, how much do y'all want the information that I guess.
So what I'm gathering from what you're saying is
Yeah.
that there isn't a system in place so we can actually get these answers. You're basically telling me there's an array of different fractions within this entire organization that we could go to, right?
That's fair, yeah.
Right? Okay, so I just want to be very clear and specific with you since that's the point, right? So based here, and you're right about our time, it is valuable to all of us, I think, and I don't want to sit here and not get stuff done. So when I look at this binder and I look at the 7 things that are outlined, I'm looking at, it says review current services and programs. Okay, that kind of seems like on the surface level, but then you go further down, it talks about appeals processes and special service surveys.
Yeah.
So I looked over a previous survey that they did last month, and it was very incompetent, to say the least. And my point is not to diminish or belittle anybody, but I don't want to spend time here looking at data that doesn't make sense. So if I'm asking for specific data, then I would expect that if I come to the next meeting, that data is available and that it is written professionally and correctly. And if that person can't do that, then we need to address that, right? Because we need to review that. So to me, it's just like, who can we directly talk to that can help us with this if it's not you?
So what data are we talking about here? You mentioned there's the incompetent survey. So if there's
Right.
questions that you feel should have been answered or posed in that survey, I think the committee could recommend that these questions be included in future surveys so that you actually get meaningful data in return.
I think that everybody here specializes in different things, and I say this with like an engineering background, hence why I know that when you give me the data, it doesn't make sense, right? But there are others here that are just like, okay, well, they don't just want to sit here and say, okay, I'm looking at numbers, great, you did your job, great. I think that nobody wants to waste their time, right?
Yeah.
So this is why I'm looking at this and kind of digging deep to kind of understand what is our leeway here. And from what your response was, which I know you're just conveying what is there, it's not very clear.
But if I'm going to the example of the survey, what is it that you need from the survey?
So the previous survey that they ran was, I wasn't even sure what the objective was from just reading it. So every question had a different objective of its own, and that question was answered, but gathering data from that, as in getting a result and taking action on it, was not, there wasn't sufficient data.
And
If
so,
that makes sense.
if I'm understanding you correctly, but that's what I'm saying, could you not then fashion questions that would, prompt from the consumers the type of answers
I
that you want?
probably could,
Yeah, well, I mean, as a committee, because
Well, the thing
Right.
if it's an incompetent survey, then
But
how
that's
can we
the-
fix the survey?
Okay, well, that's the
Because-
issue with the people that you're contracting to run these surveys. So that would be like, okay, well, that's staff and they're paid. So how do we have access to these people? Because we don't want to go to every bus and be like, okay, so this is how you actually do their survey.
Yeah.
But rather instead, how can we communicate with these individuals? We're both on the same team.
Yeah.
Right, we want to work on this effort together. But how can we do that?
In other words, how do we get the metrics, the outcomes, without stepping into the actual taking of the survey? Putting the survey together, because
I'm assuming, I don't know exactly how this survey came to be, but either they contracted for services to develop this survey or to at least distribute it, or they put the question together in-house. And so if it did it in-house, then I would think the committee could recommend questions to be put out for the next round. And if it's through a contract, then I can't imagine that the contractor just came up with the questions without any input from staff. And so again, whether it be through a third party or internally, there's a way to get at that information through the role that the committee has, so that you can have numbers that mean something and that you can act upon.
But Mr. Rosa, with all due respect, and not to sound redundant on the same issue over and over, and I know we spent for the last, so many minutes on the same object, but the thing is that if we are even considered to be putting some input, then it would be a different total ballgame. But when they tell us they're gonna do it, then, again, I'll don't wanna say redundant, I'll just bear to what Mrs. Coelho just said. We figured whoever did it was competent enough to run that survey. Now, if we're already seeing things that it's not there, then who exactly ran it? And how did they come about with the answers they gave us, the information they gave us? Because they didn't show us the percentage, they didn't tell us who it was or anything, they just said, we'll take care of it.
And for that one, I really can't speak as our mobility manager.
And that's why we had
took care of it,
requested,
so-
if you recall, in the last meeting, when your general manager said she would be here with legal, but then again, I turned around, and the only one that I see always here, and not picking up her necktie, is Rosa and you. If it's the GM has been out of these meetings for the longest, it's her responsibility to be here along, because she knew and she advised us, let's get legal in here. So if she knew we were gonna bring up legal questions, she should have been here so she could come up with him and say, okay, this is what they're asking for, what do you think? Well, Ms. GM, what do you think? Can we answer this, can we not? We're always half going forward, but we're taking one step forward, but at the same time, she's absent, so again, one step backward. Because we can't get the responses that we're looking for.
I just want to give like a quick example of why it was so important, and because I remember what the survey was about, and there was a very specific question that I had based on what the information that I looked. So there was 300 people surveyed, but out of those 300, they didn't know whether the same person had been surveyed over and over again, based on routes and such, and whatever the case might be. So just that in itself makes the data insignificant. So to us, it's like, we can't tell you, hey, you did a good job with your, whatever it is that you're trying to improve, because the data doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
So what I feel would be a solution to this would say, have a system in place of someone that we can talk to, so when it comes specifically to surveys, we can talk to that person and say, okay, this is what we'd like to do, and have that person sit in here specifically. Because I feel like you bring in different people in the staff from the department that may not necessarily, be involved with that, and it's like, we don't want to waste their time, because they're also here, putting in their time and effort as staff. So that's really, it's just about making this time worth it.
Yeah, and so I think that makes sense. I think, I don't know if the department has any other surveys in mind, or what the goal would be with that. But I don't know about necessarily designating a point person with a contractor, because I feel like that kind of gets into micromanaging the department, which is not.
I guess we don't really have a designated staff. We don't have enough staff to have someone. So we contract people out. Like for that survey, someone was contracted out. And I don't think we'd have.
Really bad job with that.
I don't think we'd have a contract. And because I know committee also didn't want it in-house, because then we get to, I guess, in other words, you get to put what data you want. So if someone else was contracted from the outside to make phone calls, that way it was unbiased, and
I do remember that part.
So we, in-house, we don't do it. We don't have anyone, we don't have the staff designated for that. We contract, and then like Christian said, I don't think we would contract someone and pay them to come sit on the meeting, or do it as a 24/7. It's like when needed, the survey.
But I think what she's saying is valid, that if there's already, the committee's already identified concerns with the survey. I think when we revisit this process later on, and we're at the planning stages, and we're thinking about contracting somebody, I think it's fair for the committee to say, hey, these are the things that I think would be meaningful things for you to ask as part of your contract, or that be part of the survey, so that, whether or not they actually execute, to the satisfaction of everybody, that's a different story, but at least we can put our best foot forward as far as not repeating the same mistakes, so that when we get the information back, because if the issue is, we don't know if these are 300 surveys or 300 unique users that didn't repeat multiple times. So as you're saying, that data kind of gets muddied if the same person took the same survey 5 times, And so these are the kind of things that,
Well, yeah, because it's already a small sample size.
Yeah.
300. That's
It's
a
not
small
very
sample
high.
size, no matter how you cut it. But if you're looking at it, and you mentioned the evil M word, which is micromanagement, what is it that we can do that it wouldn't be considered? If we have the input and we're looking for certain information to
Yeah.
come out, because part of our responsibility is to make sure that the service that is being provided meets the needs of
Yeah.
the population that we're supposed to be, looking at and taking care of and doing all that. So if we do say we would like to see these things being
Yeah.
identified, and also to see who is being contracted, I mean, if it was a graduate student, well, shame on them, because they shouldn't be getting that graduate degree, let's say, who is it that's getting this information? We used to know way back when.
yeah,
Nowadays, who knows? But we used to know way back when, who was gonna do it, and what they were gonna do, and then we had input into the process as to what questions we'd like to see, what we'd like to see measured, and what report would come out of that.
yeah.
Would that be considered something that is within our scope?
I guess let me add to that, because the survey was something that you guys requested, was based on complaints, so we did go off of that. And like Christian said, if you guys request like certain questions, that's fine, we've never had an objection to have we correct the report. I guess all this was brought up because the last time, remember, we started going into like the financial report. That's when Ms. Samuel added what we
Yes,
can go into
we're
detail.
on this track, and thank you for trying to steer
No, no,
our conversation
that
away
goes-
from the topic.
That goes with it, but we've never objected as to if you guys want to add questions to
I
it.
agree, I understand that, and yes and no to that. So let me steer us back to this, because I do want to address the financial, and it's a separate topic.
Yeah, I want to
But right
address that
now-
too, but go ahead.
Yeah, right now, we are talking about this and this other thing, and I thank you for your input. But again, the committee has a certain way of looking at things, and there's committee members that have their way of looking at things, and they have questions. So I understand your point of view, but please respect the point of view of each one of these volunteers that have been appointed by the city council to come here and to address the needs of a population that is often overlooked and taken advantage of.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
thank you. Now then, on this, on the way we look at studies, asking questions and things of that nature, we can also then follow up. If we are not satisfied, who is, again, going back to, who's the point person? Who do we see about addressing those concerns or those?
Again, it's probably an unsatisfactory answer, but so, y'all recommend policies and changes. If y'all aren't happy or unsatisfied with the response that you get or the performance of the department or their programming, I think that's one, you take it to the management level and see if that's something that but if they don't want to change that, then it's ultimately a council. I mean, the council contracts with, First Transit or LTMI for them to provide these services, and so ultimately, that would be the recommendation, but that would be at that higher level of, we are unsatisfied with how they're handling it, but ultimately, they're tasked with managing and operating the department, and so.
So would you suggest then, or would you say that it would be all right to use the memo that's supposed to happen at least once a year, which I haven't seen, by the way?
The annual report?
The annual
Yeah.
report, and also I believe we were even told 6 months or quarterly at one point to submit these reports, and I haven't seen those in a while. Would that be a vehicle that could be used to address some of these concerns, especially if we cannot come to some sort of
Yeah.
satisfactory?
I mean, there's multiple avenues. I mean, in that report, you will compile, what you've done throughout the year, the obstacles that you've encountered, and the issues. And so I think that's a fair forum for that to happen, in addition to others that are still available.
All right, just trying to find out. Ms. Escobedo, do you have any other questions? Because I know that this was a topic that you were interested in.
I'm just kind of processing everything. Like everybody's answers, I'm like making it to like one short sentence in my head. So
Good luck with that.
it's easier than it looks. But I understand what you're getting from, which is we're providing something to you, and that was what I feel like I'm going around in a circle, but that's not what I was trying to get to. It's like, I understand that. We don't want to waste your guys' time, you know, we don't want to waste our time either. But at the end of the day, he said, he basically said there is no system in place and there isn't someone directly you can go to except for city council and or the managers of, you know, the El Metro. So what I'm looking at here is just like, we can either continue to have meetings and waste time, or we can actually take action on these things and speak to our elected officials about these issues that we're concerned about, because we actually want to make a difference. So I feel like this is needed, because if our goal is really to improve or help the performance that they're bringing, because it's their job to do what they're doing. They're already doing it. They're already getting results on something. But if it's our goal to collaborate with them and improve on those goals that they already have, then we need to have this running. This needs to be efficient. That's how I feel. And if we can, then it says number 6, to make recommendations to the city council and El Metro staff concerning parity. So we can make recommendations to city council and the staff on program goals and objectives. But the other thing that I wanted to get to was I'd like to see their goals. I know that generally speaking, they have like a scope of it, but I know that last time when we talked, they're like, okay, well, our goal for this year, the lady mentioned, was, you know, going into hybrid, you know, vehicles. And it's like, okay, so then what is it that we're doing that can help that transition? You know, so if we know what their goals are, then we have something to kind of base ourselves from.
So we
But I
can
think
work
that's
on what
outside.
they want.
Yeah,
And I guess I've said this before, it's the lack of communication that we've had from them coming to us asking them, and, you know, we meet once a month, so okay, well, let's wait another 30 days before you get an answer, and then, well, no disrespect, well, we need legal to come in here, well, we'll wait another 30 days to come back in here again. So all we're doing is just spinning our wheels, and actually, you know, Mrs. Corella just said it, we're just
Stalling time.
sitting here, wasting time, and just reading numbers that they're throwing at us, and, you know, paperwork, you know, that's been delivered, but that's it. And I believe I told that to Mr. Villarreal in the last conversation that we had on the phone. I said, I feel that, you know, we're just there. Didn't I mention to you, sir? You know, we've gotten the wheels to start spinning, but like I sound redundant, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. So, and how long we've been here, Rosie, and I know Mike, you've been here forever.
I've been here for
It's
24 years.
Ours were here.
You know, so,
No, I understand your frustration, and pretty much, yeah, because I have been here a long time, I've seen the evolution, and in some cases, it's devolution. You know, dystopia time hits every now and then, and it's unfortunate, and I'm hoping that we move forward and we find ways that we can have some sort of common ground, we can have some footing and move forward and keep going, hopefully in a very positive way, even though it doesn't sound like it when I talk sometimes, but hopefully in a very positive way. Do we have any?
I believe
else?
that my colleague over here
Yes.
I want to discuss the budget too, you know, because and this is a prime example, but this is what we talked about in the past, because the numbers are very general. So in order for us, I think, to make recommendations, you know, like say lubricants, for example.
Yeah.
We were wanting to find out as a committee how much of that detail can be shared with us, so that maybe we can find, as a committee, maybe there's a better way to do it, maybe there's better providers, because unlike Mrs. Covello's, my background is transportation, so her strength is engineering, mine is not, mine is transportation, so, you know, I've gotten to see those things in my career, but we don't know, since the number is so general, what makes up that total is what we're asking. In other words, what's the other line item there other than lubricant?
Insurance, IT, personnel, fuel,
Or
lubricants, and
operation.
operations support, administrative.
And we don't know how much of that we can actually see. In other words,
Yeah.
like line items. What makes up those? Because when I establish my budgets to my boss, I have to establish those line items of
Yeah.
each of my employees and then give them the sum total. We're getting the sum total, but what makes up those?
Well, I could be wrong, but I mean, we're in the process of our budget process right now for the whole city. Every department should have had a proposed budget. It should be published on the website. You should have more detail than these 4 items. If not, I mean, so it should have all the FTEs. I mean, you're not gonna get probably a breakdown of what kind of fuel, but, you know, there will be more line items than these 5, I would hope. Or at least what's required by law for purposes of the budget proposal. So I don't see why, I mean, it's still being discussed at the council level, and so ultimately, that may change, but I think at least it was introduced this last meeting, what they had proposed. So I don't see that necessarily as an issue.
Yeah, just so that we can have an informed opinion and
Yeah.
feedback, so that we can say, you know, this line item this, or this line item that,
Yeah.
and just have a discussion on it.
Well, I would caution you only in the sense that, you know, they have their own procurement rules and policies that they have to follow, and so it's not always, you know, apparent to people that serve on the committee that, you know, it's not as easy as, you know, they have to go through a process sometimes, RFPs, RFQs, and so
Understand?
the recommendation may or may not go anywhere because that's just what law requires when it comes to selecting
And
a
it's
vendor.
perfectly understandable, but
So-
if we have some kind of communication, and again, I bring it to the table, and excuse me, partner, for interrupting on that.
Problem?
You know, I asked Mr. Guerrero, I said, we had to ask for a special call meeting. Last month, we called for a special call meeting. I sent an email, I never got a response. When I got a response, well, we were busy with the budget and we were working up to 11 o'clock. Well, that's part of the job, you know. But you could have sent us an email stating, you know what, PAC members, we're not gonna be able to have a special call meeting due to the fact that we're working on budget. Hey, perfectly understandable. Don't treat us like we're just sitting here, we're just sitting here.
We're not
Give us
saying-
that respect. That's what we're asking for. We're asking for communication going one way and coming back. But if I ask you, let's have a special call meeting, Mr. Rosas, but then you never get back to me. And then I see you, you know, whatever, and it's like, hey, send me an email. You know what? Let me send it to the chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm not able to have a meeting, or we're not able to, you know, bring it up because due to the fact we're working on budget, we're working late hours. Fine, we understand that. But take us into consideration that when we come in here, we want to hear what's going on. And if we don't hear anything, I'll be honest with you, I'm sitting here like a dead duck. That's how they make me feel, like a dead duck. And I told him that on the phone. Because we're not getting any communication from them. And that's just bottom line.
So, I mean, moving forward, if, for example, just that specific, I think Ms. Gomez more interested in the survey, great.
Yeah.
I'll participate in that. I'm more interested in this, obviously, we'll all share that. And again, just to be able to,
Yeah, I mean,
Get
that's
information so
that's
we can-
publicly available, so I don't necessarily see an issue with that. I mean, it's on the website, and so it shouldn't be an issue, it's more.
I guess what was the question last month was like, I know Mrs. Escobar had mentioned like the monthly expenses for like insurances to see like.
I was looking at the.
It's like what level of detail, it's like, the budget is online, so.
So I
like
know that last
FTE
time we discussed this already, and we talked about some of the leftover balance that you had from everything. And so we were kind of wondering how that worked. And I know that the other lady that was here, she kind of explained it, but it was all information that was missing in here. It's just like, okay, well, you have so much money left, and what can we do with that? And they're like, oh, well, I mean, that rolled over from last year, and now we're doing this and we're doing that. And it's like, well, I can't see that in this paper, so we can't make decisions on that. But I mean, I don't remember specifically what she discussed on.
Well, basically, it was pretty much what you said, and it was just an overall feeling like, yeah, you can look at that, but you can't. And that's a feeling that I get. This is just me speaking personally, not the committee. But it's a lot of times, yeah, we have that, but yeah. And it's like saying, there used to be an old saying, and I'm sure that Ms. Centeno remembers it, and that was, siempre dices que sí, pero nunca dices cuándo. So, And basically, that's, you are saying yes, you just don't say when.
I
I
think
mean, we're not gonna
we're
look
just in
at,
limbo all the
Yeah.
time, that's the biggest.
No, and that can be
More
frustrating.
information as far as the reports, more breakdowns, more,
Just a little
is that what
more-
you all guys are?
like,
More
a little
specific.
A little more background.
More
info.
information,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
More information, I mean, we're not necessarily asking for what, how much money does Joe Blow make? What we're asking for is, okay, is this it?
How much are you spending on lubricants?
The,
and-
the line items that make up.
Yeah, I can talk to Mr. Jackson, and he's the one that gives us these numbers,
Yeah.
and have them just
Well-
be more specific.
Well,
Maybe
well,
compile
a
a
little
different
more,
report.
and he can even just put it in as a backup to that, because that's a summary sheet is basically what it is.
Right.
But a summary sheet does not help a person who doesn't have access to.
I saw you.
I feel
It's
it.
just
It's
summary.
basically more of a breakdown on the maintenance.
Don't you love this
details.
color?
Yeah, more details, yeah.
Y'all are all fun. No, but with that I would say, when we get into finances and personnel, again, there are reasonable requests that will be related to what the scope of your duties are. I mean, but what can we do with money that hasn't been spent from a budget prior? I feel like that is probably not within the line of what's permissible. Because ultimately, again, if you're dissatisfied with how they're handling their finances, that's something that you can address. If you have ideas or programs that can be implemented, it's up to council and management to find the money for it if they want to make it happen. And so you come up with a plan and they get to execute and find the money for it. And so it's not,
I don't think that's what we were trying to do. I think we're just trying to just have our input from just line items on a budget.
I don't know, and as I said, I think most of these will be reasonable, but again, there's always kind of a gray area.
Understood.
Yeah, we're okay with asking for Christmas trees, we're just not okay with saying, I want a spruce, I want this, I want that. Yeah.
I mean, I understand we can't ask what do we do with the money, but can we tie it into like how can we use that money to improve our fixed route, maybe like in my district,
Yeah.
South Laredo? Because I have questions left and right, or people calling me, social media, the elderly especially, like, hey, how come I don't qualify for these services,
Yeah.
or how come we don't have a fixed route in Ejido and South?
And so I think that's a perfect example. If you are being reached by constituents, you're saying, you know, we don't have access to your services in these routes, or the costs that El Metro is providing are not affordable, this is where this committee can kind of take all that in and, you know, when we're talking about fare increases or additional capital improvement projects for the next year, that you can say, these are things that El Metro and council as a whole should consider because I'm getting this from my constituents. I mean, getting the money, that's up to them to figure out because they have the budget, they have what they get from transit, and then they have their own district priority funds. And so, but if the committee makes a recommendation, just like they have now the circulator pilot program, I mean, that was, I don't know if that originated here or at the council level, but these are the kind of ideas that this is a forum for, to vet those, screen those, and then
Like
push it
for-
forward.
I guess, but for all of like line items, like let's say like personnel FTs or whatever, we'd stick to paratransit only, not El Metro as a whole, right?
Well,
Or
again,
would
this
we-
is part of the discussion that we've been having. My whole point is, it's not just paratransit, because we do have paratransit clients that do use fixed route. And for a while, we were having troubles with the lifts and all that. So that was where we stepped up. So if you say, no, not fixed route, you know,
No,
aside from
as far as
stifling
that,
discussion,
that was fixed,
Yeah.
buying the low floor
Oh, yeah.
buses, and if it doesn't work, you do it manually, just
Correct.
pull out the, yeah.
And that was something that came through the committee.
Mhm.
So
But
just
that
by
wasn't
saying-
major, I'm sorry, but that wasn't a major problem back then.
Yes, that's correct. That was, but it was something that the committee could bring up, but it wasn't because it was simply paratransit is only paratransit and fixed route is only fixed route. Because of the clientele that we are supposed to be looking at, in my opinion. Again, it's the committee that can look at it and have a different interpretation of what our charge is. But our charge should be to look out for and provide the best service that's possible, within reason, obviously, because there's going to be constraints. We don't have buku bucks, because otherwise we'd have, and I remember we had a committee member who was visually impaired, and she was pushing for the longest time to have the buses say you know, where you are, what stop, and all that other stuff. And that was at the fixed route, obviously. So, I mean, just to simply state, you guys are only, paratransit, you guys are only a lift, is a, to me, kind of like a wet blanket statement saying, no, guys, I'm gonna push you over here. And that's why I will always push back. I understand where you're coming from, because who wants another person telling me how to do my job better?
No, we're just going off of the bylaw that state, like specifically said, all this stuff is like review for a lift paratransit services, program for a lift. Like, a lot of these things just say specifically a lift paratransit service, so I'm trying to make sure that we're following this correctly, or what we provide is within what we should provide, like.
Right, I agree with you, because I have had people with disabilities reach out to me, and I've had clients that have disabilities and work with their clients that have disabilities. And they do ride the regular bus sometimes because the other bus will not come, you know, in time if they request for special locations or whatever the case might be. And it's like, yeah, I've had some of these people tell me, you know, the guy, like, you know, he opens the door, but I'm just there waiting, and I'm just kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do, you know. So they just rather roll, literally, on their wheelchairs, for hours, you know, to their locations.
I
It's
can
just
agree with her, because where I'm working right now, you see our needy community, that they go, and you tell them about, for example, I tell them about the lift, you know, and they say, well, we don't know that program existed. So I made several calls to the lift department, asking for them to send them an application to go to the house, so they can make up the application and bring it back to them, okay? I mean, just yesterday, this is one of the last ones that I talked to. It's an old lady, she's 72 years old, she's got a 30-year-old son that he's really not mentally well. Like she said, our reliable transportation is the city bus, and I understand. And I know that she lives on Chacon. The bus that goes through there, I think it's Corpus, right?
Chacon and Meadow?
Yeah,
Yes.
but you know, but they have to cross a highway to get the bus.
Or Chacon and Zapata Highway or Chacon and Meadow? Meadow is at Corpus.
No, I think it's Chacon and Zapata Highway where they get it. So they have to cross the highway, and it's very dangerous for the young man. She said the other day, para cuando quise, he ran. Tan that que no venía ningún carro, si no me lo mata. You know, and these are the persons that need the lift program. And the elderly lady, she's 72. She can't walk very well. So I mean, immediately I called the lift and told them we need to send two applications to these persons, because they need the program. And I can go down the line, because every day I have customers like that. And just like you're saying, you know, they have to get their way around.
And there's some people that, for whatever, and that's what it's all about, is for people under 88, which trumps our little, no, that's the correct word, which supersedes, I think, our bylaws and charter and all that, which is to provide independence for everyone. And so that people who may have difficulties and challenges
So they
can have access to
To the-
a much...
to the program.
a much better quality of life.
And this is why we're being here, in my way of thinking. This is what we're fighting for. So these people could get it and could use the programs the way they're supposed to be used. Because they're good programs, like I said. I have really used the program, and it's helped me tremendously. And it's still helping me. We have problems like everybody does, you know, but I think there are problems that we can talk and that can be arranged. You know, it's nothing a matter of life or death. But if we don't put them out there and we don't give them to the people, or we don't let them know, I mean, how are they gonna get it? That's my thing, you know.
And I want to thank everybody for the discussion. I know that there's some people that may need to get to a couple of other things. Do we have any other, I know we had the social media,
Oh, I guess.
but do we have any more on this topic? So, thank you all very much, and very good input, thank you. So,
I guess the last question was also using social media. I know I'm not really familiar with like the rules or anything as to like creating, let's say, Paratransit Advisory Committee Facebook page. So that was like one of the questions, because they wanted to reach new ridership through social media. So what?
So does the El Metro not have a social media presence?
that I know of. We used
My
to.
my understanding was that the general manager said they did without, and that's Mrs. Sparza's words, was also that they did without what they had. I know I reached out to, I can't recall if it was Mr. Real or Mrs. Sparza. I reached out and I saw a couple of them, I had them in my phone, that to me, you know, whether you had social media back then, I think the most eager thing that, again, I go back to communication, is if you had a Facebook page for whatever reason, you know, which I see everybody else does, you know, the municipal court has one, your boss has one, Mr. Raul Reyes, you know, Judge Dano Tijerina has one, you know. I don't see why we couldn't have one, but when you see all these negative comments and you don't respond back to them, guess what?
Nothing
That client,
happens.
no, that, nothing happens, correct, but that client is gonna be more upset because he's trying to see if through social media,
You
hey,
get somewhere.
hello, can you help me? I'm over here dying, will you allow me to please answer me back and tell me something? They never answered none of those social media negative comments. And that's the worstest thing that a person can do, whoever holds the page, because you're not giving that customer service satisfaction back to them. Plain and simple. If I make a complaint about Mr. Rosas gonna have to tell his boss, Ms. Hale, hey, here's my report, this is what really happened, this is my story, this is my side of the story. He's gonna defend himself. But if he just says, oh, it's only Avila, never mind. Guess what?
We don't have a Facebook presence.
You did
Well,
have,
there's one, I was actually just
I
looking
don't
through
know,
it.
is it updated recently? I
It
don't
says
know if
Ed
it's-
Metro and the last post
But for
was
the ADA, for the,
August
Oh, yeah.
2016.
yeah, but if you go
Yeah.
back, that's where you can see all your negative comments, and nobody ever took care of that page. So that's why we're saying, and you just stated yourself, we don't have enough employees. Well,
I'm sure there's
That's
someone that
when-
manages social media for the city of Laredo, right?
Yeah, so we have a public information office, and so they do a lot.
Rafael Benavides,
Yeah,
right.
so he does, and so he administers
Oh, I
also
know.
every department. We passed the social media policy, or the council did, not we. Whereas each department can, I guess, petition, if you may, to open a new social media account, and there's an administrator. And so that's something that a Metro could avail themselves if they think that this is valuable, or if the committee recommends that this is an avenue that they should pursue. So, I mean, there's nothing stopping an individual department from having a social media page. They just have to follow the steps and fill out the forms and do all that, because, as you said, having it is not enough. You have to run it responsibly and decide what level of engagement you want to have with the public, because you don't want to leave people hanging either. And so if it's not going to be a meaningful form of engagement, then you have to decide what kind of forum you're going to have that be and what function it's going to serve.
but you at least acknowledge their complaint, and you'll find a way to get back to, hey, you know what, let me inbox you, call us at this number, well, you know, let's talk about it, or, you know.
Mr. Avila, well, now we have Ms. Aguilar. I think she's gonna be doing Mr. Villarreal's position now, right? Maybe it's gonna be more
More
worthwhile.
effective.
More effective.
I feel that we should, motion to bring this up to council. I think that could be extremely beneficial. There's so many people that can be, that can be made aware that the service exists,
Yes.
or that there's an appeal process, or that all this stuff, and we could even have public events, like you guys have mentioned
Well, at
before.
one time, we were supposed to do an event, or we were supposed to get together with media, and I've done it twice.
I
I've
still
done it
haven't seen that
twice.
commercial, Ms. Centeno.
I was out here about 4 months ago, when they
Looking for the
interviewed
budget.
me.
Huh?
They're looking for the budget.
Okay.
It was about 4 months
No,
ago.
because they offered us that.
Yeah.
Remember?
Right.
Staff brought it to us, hey, we're gonna do a commercial, we're gonna do that, oh, okay.
But that was
We'll be
actually,
there.
that was actually a year and a half, almost 2 years ago.
No, no, no.
We're still waiting for that one, though.
I did?
No, the one that when it was brought up, originally brought up and everything, we were still meeting at the event.
Yes.
No, no, no. This one I did outside here. About 6 months ago.
I think that sharing the stories that, like, for example, some of our friends have had to deal with, and how this can impact their life, would, prove a lot of organic value for the online presence.
Well, you made a motion, now you're saying to bring it to, something to bring to
City council for them to either give us a budget or the resources, meaning if they already have something in line with, their PR.
I think that's a good idea. I would second her motion.
So there's a motion and a second, we're okay with the second, correct? So
Is it-
Until Ms. Centeno's replaced, so you can still make motions.
I'm kind of speaking out the cuff from what I know, but I think that's fine if you can find somebody
I
else.
second the motion, just be on the safe
All right.
side.
Okay, yes.
Okay, any other discussion?
If you can find us more money, perfect. We're all ears.
We've been looking for that, we've been waiting for you to look for that money for 2 years, sir.
Is there any further discussion?
Well, am I gonna be able to vote? That's my other question.
That's why I brought up earlier.
Because if I'm not
I
gonna be able to
believe right
vote,
now we have a quorum, so I believe you still can. If we were outside of the quorum, like if we didn't have enough, then it would affect the vote.
because if I'm not gonna be able to make motions or second motions, Mr. Chairman, then what am I doing here?
It's a very good question, man. That's why
Like I
we
said, if I'm here,
wanted the
because
clarification.
I'm interested in doing something for our community, to see we can go forth with the program, to do what's needed for the program.
As a member of the public, as a member of the people that use the services, you are always welcome at this meeting, and whether you're not at your...
Well, I understand that I'm always
council meeting.
welcome to come and give my comments, and I am aware of that. But right now, if I'm not gonna be able to vote, if I'm not gonna be able to make a motion or second a motion, then why am I wasting my time?
Well-
That's the bottom line.
Well, then, with all due respect, I mean, that's really, legal should let us know on that one.
Well,
Because it's out of his
he's
jurisdiction.
told us that it will be until the councilman that put me here gets reelected, correct?
No,
No,
reappoints.
Or reappointed, I'm sorry.
As I understand the rules, that's what the general rule is when a term expires for a committee member.
When the term expires for a committee member.
You can serve as a holdover, so I don't know, I mean, ultimately, I think for purposes of today, this is kind of late, brought to everybody's attention. I don't think we would be running afoul if with having you serve as a holdover till we get more clarification. If it makes everybody feel more comfortable for you not to take any action, we can, to be on the safe side, but I don't have the answer for that right now. So I can give you an answer as soon as possible of what your role is here so that you can decide how to move forward.
Fine.
But-
Because if I haven't been able to speak to the
Yeah.
councilman, I've called him 3 or 4 times, no avail, Once I talk to him, then I will know exactly where I stand, and that's really what I want to know.
Well, then again, and that's why I said earlier, with all due respect, I feel, we don't want you to be booted out per se. But in the meantime, for this meeting, I just think that,
I agree. and
any
if you
motions or
second
stuff
the
like
motion,
that,
that'd be
just-
fine, that'd be
yeah,
fine.
just hold back that.
I don't
way.
have a problem, because
They
I don't
won't-
want that item to come back and say, well, it's not valid. because-
Exactly.
I understand,
Just
I'm
for this
fully aware of
one,
that.
just for this one.
I'm fully aware of that.
So we have a motion and a second, and I believe we...
I second it, yes.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and call the question. All those in favor of requesting City Council provide the support that is necessary to have a viable, I was gonna say Facebook, but it's social media, right?
Social media.
All
Social media presence.
Yeah, social media presence. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? The ayes have it. Do we have anything else? Because I know Mr. Rosas is anxious to leave.
I'm not anxious to leave, but I do want you to be at 7,
I
so.
do too.
But if there's more questions, I'll take the questions, but if there's none, I will gladly
Run
make my exit.
We're running out here, we're making high 7.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can we go to the next one?
Good evening.
Can we go to the next one?
So you're done with the,
Done with A.
so you're done with Mr. Wilson.
All right, thank you.
We're done with, I think we're done with A, B, C,
Probably for that.
And D.
and D.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
correct.
it covers,
Even the Wi-Fi ban?
no, A, C, D.
ACD. All right.
ACD, right.
Thank you, Mr. Rosa.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you,
good one,
sir.
sir.
Okay, so do we want to go with the order, which would be B, or do we want to go with E?
Let's go with B, so we
You
can
guys
get
wanna go
over.
already with the,
Okay. The status of the Wi-Fi buses in the vans.
Now we're still pending the 11 vans.
So, oh, okay.
That's the update.
That's the update, that's the vans.
I'm sorry, what was that?
We're still pending the 11 vans we had mentioned the last meeting. We're still pending funding for those 11 vans.
Oh, okay.
But we get it because the old vans are really cracking down.
No,
It's
for the Wi-Fi.
This is
I'm
for the
sorry for
Wi-Fi.
the Wi-Fi,
Yes, we're
okay.
pending funding, we're still pending the funding for those projects. So I guess that's how you guys want to get.
Well, do you
just the
think it'll
status
come
of
in
the
with a
status,
new
yeah.
budget? At the time of the new
It
budget?
wasn't on the new budget.
It was not in the new budget.
It wasn't able to be put on there?
It wasn't funded.
It was not funded.
Okay.
So we probably won't get it this fiscal year.
Well, there might be a grant or something that might pop up. right?
There's really no grants for, talking about Wi-Fi, right?
Right.
They're more like for capital improvements, which is where we've been applying for the actual vehicles.
Okay.
So, and that's pretty much what we're pursuing at this time, the replacement of the fleet. So, this next coming meeting on Monday next week, there's an item to approve 2 vans, one funded by 5310 and one funded by 5339, all federal funds.
Oh, 39, oh, okay.
5339 and 5310. We're going to be ordering 2 vans.
Very good.
Because the old vans are really, two of them are real bad now.
That's on the next city council meeting?
This coming.
Next
city
Monday?
council, yes. I don't know if you had the opportunity to follow the budget workshop.
5:30,
Monday.
Off and on, really, but not.
Yeah, we requested funds to replace, according to the replacement schedule. Unfortunately, there was not enough funds for all the departments of the city. What we received for funds in total was $639,000, give or take, for a hybrid bus, $494,000 for a regular CNG, 35-footer, funding for 2 circulator vans, about $265,000, and funding for 2 paratransit vans only. So we have those 2 funded. The city is going to issue bonds. Those dollars become available possibly late November. So at that point, we'll be able to place another PO for 2 additional vans. We
That's
still,
through the CIP?
through the CAP, yes. Yeah, this will be city bonds.
Oh.
But it's gotta be the city bond, right?
And these are 110,000?
505, give or take, yes. So, as of right now, we only have funds for the 2 vans that I just mentioned with federal dollars, and the 2 vans that will be funded hopefully by late November. But we still have about 8 to replace. So we'll basically still need funds for 4 more to replace the fleet. Okay. It takes about 3 to 6 months for the vans to deliver and put them in service. So, I'm pretty sure we're gonna be approved for these 2 vans coming up on Monday. So we should be able to include that PO next week, so 3 months from that, we'll receive 2. Like I say, late November, we're gonna receive more funding. At that point, we'll place the order for 2 more, and then 3 months later, we get them. So I wanna say within the next 3 to 6 months, we should be putting on service at least 4 vans. Beyond that, there is no funding.
As a PAC members, do you need any support on Monday from the chairman to be there, or, you know?
I mean, it always helps. This, because they're federally funded, basically,
Okay.
I really do not foresee any issues.
Federally?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I hadn't heard that word, so that's why I
You will
offered
get
to
the
get it.
funding anyways, right?
The federal one, yes, the other ones on the bonds and everything.
Yeah, I didn't hear
Those are the
it say
ones we
federally,
need
that's
to
why
pay
I
for.
opted to say.
So once we get to that, I'll be more than glad to let everybody know that we're gonna be bringing them for approvals. But like I said, beyond that, there's no funds allocated for fleet replacement. And you can always relate back to your specific council members. Because, I mean, there was a lot of needs from the different departments. But, you know, I consider myself that we were one of those departments that we were fortunate enough to receive, if not all, but some of our needs.
At least we could be able to get two, or
Yeah,
get the
because
four.
in total, it's about $2.3 million that we
Mhm.
received between the fixed road buses, two of them, the two circulators and the two paratransit vans, so.
Is it still only one or two companies that, I guess, manufacture the buses?
Oh, no, there's plenty of companies that manufacture buses, yes. But right now, the ones that have contracts, or state contracts, the buy-board
Right.
contracts. The one that we're working with is Giddick, and it's always a good practice to keep consistent with your fleet. That way you don't have to keep inventory of the Chevy, of the Ford, of the, you know, different, because it just creates a whole different set of problems. But that's not the main reason that we're doing it. We're doing it because those are the buses that at this time they have state contracts.
I don't know if you want to explain a little bit about the buy board and the process, so that people can get a little familiar with it. In other words, you don't have to go out for 3 bids, you don't have to do everything, because since you're going off of the state contract, that's already been done, and that's done at the state level, so that, as it cuts down the amount of time.
Correct.
Oh, I guess I can say that.
You just explained it.
You just explained it for
It
them.
doesn't explain it. Well, the procedure for us to buy anything that we buy, or $1,000, we have to get quotes, and if it goes over 5,000, we need to issue bids.
Yes.
So when you're bidding out buses, in this case, it's very intense. I mean, it's going to be packs and packs of paper to make sure that the vehicle meets all the requirements, and there's a lot of requirements. For the manufacturing, the amount of steel on the bus, it has to meet a certain percentage. It has to be manufactured in the United States. Just to give you an example how intense that is. So that takes a lot of time. Big transit agencies are going to have people dedicated just to create, develop these specifications for buses. So small agencies like us, we rely on the different states, like in this case TxDOT, or the different departments of transportation of each state. They conduct this massive bids, not only for buses, for vehicles, for supplies, for uniform, you name it. So those people that get award, they're registered with the different states, and those are the ones that are called buy boards or state contracts. So basically, you go and buy off that state contract, you guarantee you're getting the best deal, you know, for that commodity. So Federal Transit Administration that regulates us, you know, they allow for us to go and procure under those guidelines, and really saves a lot of time and saves a lot of money, because you're getting the best deal you can get. So like even the cities, the states, they rely and take advantage of those contracts. That's the explanation.
Questions? Okay. Thank you very much for that. So the next one is E. What are we doing on E? Okay,
Are you guys gonna elect or table, or what you recommend?
that's what I'm
Election
asking.
of officers.
What do y'all want to do?
Well, since we're missing some people, I don't think we should actually proceed until, I think more of us are, well, hopefully, all of us are present. I know that's a tall order, but I'm not sure it would be fair to,
As it
Two people were
stands,
missing?
I guess we don't have officers right now, we want to put it that way. 'Cause I know it's every year, right? That
Yeah.
their term,
It's supposed to be every year, once a
their
year.
term.
Mhm.
And I know it's
term.
been past the year, so.
I think we need to go forward because of the fact.
I know
that
last
it's
time
expired
we
within
had
a
to
year.
wait due
Oh,
to
really?
this clarification, but
Right,
I
but
think,
we also had more
because
people
that,
last
yeah,
time.
because as it stands, there's a point that we don't have a chair, technically. We
Because
don't
of the
have a
fact that,
chair Or a
I didn't know
parliamentary.
yeah, we had already changed.
Yeah, because it's one, it's.
Because it's
that's a
been past the
year.
year,
And I believe it was a year in March?
May,
May?
May.
May. So it's a year in May, so we're kind of, so it's up to you, whatever the committee thinks. If you all want to limp along with an acting or interim, as I guess what we're doing right now here.
Well, I know for a fact, Mr. Chairman, that Mr. Summerall hasn't shown up, and I
guess
think we discussed that already.
And we'll throw that for the record. Today is Mr. Somerville's fourth absence, so.
Okay.
just letting you
So,
know.
the only one that really, that we're missing is Mr. Geiser and Mr. Costa.
Yeah, and they're still all active members, even with today's absence, so.
I'm very surprised Mr. Kaiser is not here.
I'm surprised too.
And
But
it's been 2 meetings, you know, that really surprises me.
Yeah.
He was here at the last one, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, he was here last time.
Yes, he was.
And Mr.
Yeah.
Costa was here also. And,
Yes.
you know, the only thing is that I feel that, again, I'm gonna echo Ms. Centeno's words. We have a responsibility. We knew that we had tabled this item for the next meeting. Where we need to, and I'm gonna echo Mrs. Coelho's words, we need to continue moving forward instead of going forward one or 2 steps and then we're gonna take 3 steps back. I think in the best interest is, I would like to make a motion that we go forward with the election of officers. We're surpassed the time and I think it's time to move
We
forward.
have a motion, is there a second? There's a motion and a second.
And I guess I'll add to that, not the motion, though, go ahead, take your vote.
Oh, wait, no, this is just gonna be, we're gonna open it to discussion so we can put in whatever you're gonna tell us. So I'm gonna go ahead and open it for discussion. You were saying?
And, I guess I'll bring it up to everyone, it's usually Mr. K's in the chair. Ms. Centeno has been vice chair before.
Yeah, well,
No,
yeah,
yeah,
but
it's
yeah,
been like that.
It's been, like, yes, it has been a while.
And
that
Mr.
I-
Avila has been our parliamentarian. So I guess facilitate it. You guys can take a
Okay,
vote to keep it the same.
Before you,
Or you guys wanna
yeah,
take
I know where you're
individual
going with
votes?
that. Okay,
Since we've done it before, it just makes it easier for you guys.
yes, I understand.
Not for decisions
now-
to vote.
It has been.
Not that it has to be like that.
No, no, it doesn't have to be like that. There have been a couple of different times where we've just basically kept what we've had. There is a time, I think we've got new people, and the new people that are in the board are active and have been around long enough to where anyone here, I think, can go ahead and, just to remove that excuse as you know, okay. But anyone here can serve in any capacity on the board. So with that said, it's really, I think we should entertain motions from the floor. Don't go with necessarily, let's just, these people are here, let's just keep them here. Go ahead and look at, see what it is, or who it is that can either step up or, wants to step up and take any one of those roles or anything. I'm not offended. If somebody wants to be or thinks that they, should
And
be here.
I guess the description of what your duties will be as a chair, vice chair is on the bylaws too, if anyone is interested in wanting to be appointed or vote themselves.
Yeah, because you can do
The
that.
duties are here on page 3 of your bylaws. Oh,
yeah.
you didn't, your bylaws.
No,
I don't really.
Well,
Just,
I would like to start by making a motion to appoint Mr. Sanchez as the vice chair for,
Well, first, are we gonna, so let's close discussion. and then
Okay, I'm sorry.
We can open the other, let's, so,
Motion to hold election of
motion to hold
officers.
election of officers. So all those in favor?
I,
Any opposed? All right. Now, go ahead.
sorry about that.
That's okay. That's good.
I would like to, if so he desires to serve as our vice chair, then I would like Mr. Sanchez to be elected as our next vice chair for the next term.
For the next year.
Since I can't make a second motion, I can't. Somebody else can make it,
Oh,
Mr.
that's
Sanchez.
Okay, is there a second, and we can also still make other.
There's still discussions, still other recommendations if anyone
Yeah.
feels they want to be or they should be or anyone else should be.
To be considered or whatever. So is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Are there any other nominations? I guess I can do it that way. That would probably be. Are there any others?
For the vice chair? We're talking about the
Well,
vice
for
chair.
Vice chair, we can do vice chair, we can do.
We can do all 3 as a whole motion as a control. Any other recommendations for the other 2 positions?
For the parliamentarian, I would like to bring in Mrs. Coelho.
I decline.
Well, that was
Thank
quick.
That was quick.
I would like to nominate Mr. Mike Hazen for chair.
Okay, before, because,
I
okay.
decline.
Before we get to that point, I have served in that capacity, as was mentioned, for a long time now.
You don't want to get it anywhere.
Well, no, it's not that I don't want to, I think that there's people that can bring in some good, different points of view and whatnot. And really, I'd like to see if there's, somebody else that can do it. I mean, I know Mr. Aguilar has been here for quite some time. You all have been here, and both of you guys have been here with enough time. I don't know if Mr. Aguilar will, I know his eyes just looked at me, but would that be something that would interest you at all?
I have no problem if I'm appointed to it. I would accept.
But we have a nomination on the floor.
So we have a.
We have two nominations.
We have a first, we have a.
You nominate,
Oh, I guess, can I?
he nominated you, she nominated you, and you nominated him, so
Oh.
I guess you guys vote. I won't be sure how that works.
Okay, my
There
feel,
was two nominations. I
Right.
guess you,
my feel on this is that if. and
or is
it's
it
always-
time?
Well, it's always been that, I would do it if nobody else would do it, but right now we do have somebody who's willing and who has been here. So I would respectfully decline on that.
Unless you want to have a runoff or something.
That's a good one. That's a good
Done
one.
that,
And wait for another 90 days.
no. Well, is
Let me
there-
fundraise.
Is there a second? Or I guess you can even second your own nomination.
No, I'll second.
Okay, there's a second. Well, wait, can I nominate as the chair?
Well, technically it's expired, so there's no.
So there's no chair, so I can do that?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
So as of now, I would like
But
to
thank
chair
you. Go ahead.
Mr. Sanchez,
Escobedo.
vice chair.
Parliamentarian?
So we just need a
He has a lot
parliamentarian.
of.
So we just need a parliamentarian. I guess that's why it's here, like, I
Hey,
guess what
Mrs.
it says,
Escobedo.
you just run the meetings, like, you run the meetings, organize a lot of stuff, you'll be their voice. Doesn't necessarily mean you'll take on like more duty, but
Correct.
you'll just be like the voice of the committee in the words.
Whenever there's a formal thing that, and the committee wants representation. Because you can't go out there and say, I'm the chair of the committee, and unless the committee says.
As
you
a
can't
whole.
go out there and say.
So I guess we'd just be missing a parliamentarian.
Parliamentarian.
Yes.
For the duties of the parliamentary.
Oh, really? It's just to make sure that.
I guess pretty much keeps in line public comments, which we never have. Whenever we have public comments, I don't know if you heard in council, they have like a little thing that rings after 3 minutes.
After 3 minutes.
They pretty much be like a timekeeper. We have,
I'm too much
any
of a
public
nice guy,
comments?
I can't do it.
it's pretty much on the bylaws, which I had provided.
Mr. Gomez, are you
Maybe we
interested
can
in?
I can do
table,
that.
maybe we can just table the parliamentarian part.
Well,
Make sure
we'll-
you're
Accept
the.
Mr. Gomez, you accept it?
Yeah.
I'll accept the parliamentary.
Gomez will take the parliamentary.
Does we table it?
You have a good crew.
And there you go, so I guess the motion would be, have Mr. Avila as the chair, Mr. Sanchez vice chair, and Mr. Gomez as parliamentarian. Correct? Rick, well, those have been nominated. I guess that was the motion, you just need the second and the votes. and-
Well, wait, is it by my motion on
No.
that, or how's that?
I think it was on Mrs.
Mrs. Coelho?
Mrs.
Oh, no, Mr. Avila opened up the motion by nominating,
Mr.
Mr.
Sanchez.
Sanchez.
So then.
And she seconded.
okay, so just the yeses for all these three
Matter of
nominations.
calling for the vote.
Yes, calling the vote.
Okay, so do we have any other nominations? And I'm gonna do it the old fashioned way. Do we have any other nominations?
No.
So you nominated
Mr.
Mr. Gomez for.
Mr. Gomez
No, for
and
parliamentary.
and for second?
I'll second.
Like,
Okay, thank you. Okay, parliamentarian, okay, now the old fashioned way. Any further nominations?
No,
Any further nominations?
no,
Third time, any further nominations, exactly.
no.
Okay, nominations are closed. So,
They cease.
now all those in favor of the slate of officers as nominated,
Aye.
say aye, all opposed?
You can say aye.
Everybody's quiet.
I heard an aye, I'm taking it.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Because you were quick on the opposed, and when do we jump in with the aye?
It's the old fashioned way of doing it, and that's when they start calling for a roll call.
There you go.
And then you have to go in there and you have to do the thing.
So I guess
I'd like to pull the cherry on that one.
Motion passes, and I hand over the gavel, because that takes effect immediately.
yeah. So I guess we so now so Mr. Avila is our chair, committee
Yes.
chair, Mr. Sanchez is vice chair, and Mr. Gomez is our parliamentarian.
Just a point of personal privilege, even though we don't follow Robert's rules. But just a point, I wanted to say thank you all very much for everybody, staff, committee members, everybody that has really helped. It has been, I think, the last I can look at it, it's been since 2006. So I've been here through many incarnations of this committee, this board. I think we've done quite a bit in the short time that we've actually gone forward this way. So I wanted to say thank you. There's been a lot done, a lot of improvements from the old days to now. There's been a lot.
We don't change.
We still have some more work to do, but thank you all. It's a joint effort of everybody on the committee, everybody on council, staff. People have been fantastic, and their clientele, of course, the clients that we serve. So thank you all very much for that, and I'm sure that Mr. Avila will put a much more better positive spin on all this stuff and everything that's going on, and keep moving us forward. So thank you all. I think you all made a wise choice. So.
Thank you for serving
And for
us.
the record, you know, Mr. Kazin, when I first came in here, you know, you were the role model. As we go on the next meeting, you know, I'll be the chairman, but honestly, with all due respect, we thank you for such an outstanding service. It's hard to keep a chairman so many years in a committee, to be honest with you. But thank you, and we applaud you because it's well deserved. Plenty of free time that you have given this city, this committee, and un abrazo, and thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, and just a point of clarification, I've been on the committee since 2006. I haven't been the chair that long. Around five
According
plus.
to the city website.
Yes, plus before that, but yeah, off and on. But anyway, thanks. Thank you all very much. So,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for serving this committee in a well manner.
almost there. Thank you. Thank you all, and Mr. Chairman, it's all on you now.
So we stopped at
We now have.
E, the next one, so now we're bringing up F, brief of summary update of the 2016 Transit Development Plan.
Just, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I know that this plan, a lot of the points in the plan have been addressed and have been moved forward. This is just a, kind of like a little taste of some of what's been done, and maybe some that still may need, I don't know if there's anything that still needs to be addressed.
The 5-year transit development plan, and I don't have it here with me. The bigger projects, which pretty much is where we've been keeping our attention lately, being fleet replacement, we're not to schedule, and obviously it goes back to funding. Transit not being self-sufficient, relying on the city funds to replace the fleet. The other bigger projects that are identified on that plan is the new facility, Jackman. So we'll continue to pursue federal dollars for it. We'll continue to apply to different grants. As of right now, we have an application. They're not being awarded. There's not been any news on awards for that. So that's still pending. And the other bigger...
If I may have that one on Jackman, has the land already been secured or not?
The land is been owned by the city for a good 6-8 years. I don't know the exact, but the city belongs, the land belongs to the city. And it's already been dedicated for that particular project. As a matter of fact, it's being used as a match dollars on grants. So that land is secure for that specific purpose.
Fantastic.
Yeah. The other big project that we have is actually doing they call it a transit structural study. Basically reevaluating all the routes and making a determination based on ridership, based and updated demographics, where do people live, the transit prone people, so we can determine some of those routes that we see that are very low ranking, that they're not performing well, meaning that they do not have the number of passengers per hour compared to our big ridership. Those routes, recommendation most likely is either going to be to reduce, eliminate, or reroute. So that's why there is a need for a comprehensive study. That's part of the suggestions of the 5-year plan. That request for funding has been submitted several times. This last call for projects during budget time, MPO will dedicate $250,000 to complete that study. So that's going to be put back into the agenda for MPO to allocate planning dollars for the transit system so we can complete that bigger project. And that, at this point, will be the bigger projects, the fleet, the facility, and the actual route, the route system. Obviously, everybody knows about the circulators. I mean, we were blessed that we received funding for the vans, much needed. So that project continues to be in line. Other than that, it's pretty much, been implemented. The general things, they're all being implemented. But the big projects, they're still on the table, pending funding.
Any questions? From any other committee members, any questions? Thank you, ma'am. And I guess now we have nothing on executive session. And we move on to the next one, and I guess Mr. Geisler's favorite is not here today, so.
Oh, well, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If I may, can we, I guess, either accept the reports as presented for this meeting or table them for our next meeting? I don't know which the wishes of the committee would be.
For this meeting, I would say.
For this meeting, I would think.
Okay. So you want to accept as presented? But I'm saying, like, accept it as it's presented without questions. And that's only in the interest of time, or do we have questions?
I don't know. Does anybody else have questions?
No, but if you've got questions.
If they have questions, we'll go ahead and entertain it.
This is good then.
Yes, I think we're good.
No, but if you have questions.
Don't go back.
I'm still like processing the stuff that she was talking about right now. It's just like $230,000 allocated for something. I'm just trying to keep up to date to what we're
Oh, well,
talking about.
yeah, the 230,000 would, why am I'm not the chairman anymore. Ma'am, the 230 from the MPO, if you really mind explaining that.
$200,000 planning dollars from the MPO to pay for this study, for the general structural study of the routes. Like I said, that's a complete evaluation of the routes, ridership, running studies of demographics along the route, so they can validate and confirm and saying this route is no longer sustainable.
And who's doing that? The studies.
Who will do it? That work has to be funded first, and then we'll bid it out. Everything that we do, we have to bid it out, everything. Even consulting to complete studies, an RFQ will be completed, so the purchasing department along with us and the committee will select the company that will complete this project. And because we're going to be funded through the MPO will also participate in the actual selection of the company that will complete this work.
Good?
And is that, just one last question, is that data that you're going to be receiving from this particular consulting firm, or whatever the case might be, is that going to be just classified, or can that be public?
Oh,
or?
no, it will be public, yes.
Okay.
It will be public.
I was just-
The plan gets presented to both council, Mass Transit Board, and the MPO. It gets received, it gets presented, it gets approved for implementation. Before we move into, let's say, we're gonna cancel TAMIU, and there's no chance, because that's our #1 ranking. So obviously, it's a long process, The study will be completed, and then let's say a recommendation comes back, we need to shut down TAMIU route, just to say one. That there's no chance we will cancel that one. There do have to be public hearings to let the public know we intend to shut down this route, or it's no longer going to go through Delmar, it's going to go to Bartlett. So you have to conduct these public meetings to get the input. It's like a very lengthy process.
Whatever change that's gonna be, right?
Before, yeah, when you get that public input, then, we're going to come back with a recommendation. It gets presented to council, and they'll have the final say. So whether a route gets reallocated, canceled, maybe the frequency will be affected. Right now, we don't have enough ridership to run every 30 minutes, but maybe we're gonna run every 3 hours. So, but that's gonna be based on the data that these people will be collecting, the demographics and the ridership and so on and so forth. So the recommendation will be put out for public meeting or the hearings, and then to council and MPO before any change goes into effect.
Let me ask a question on that ridership that you just stated. Have we seen any, and Rose, I don't know if you can answer that one. Have you seen any decrease of ridership on the south side of Laredo since all this Trump administration has changed, that Border Patrol is working very hard?
We've seen a decline in ridership, but it's mainly based on domestic workers that come from across. The violence across is affecting our ridership.
Okay.
You see heavy ridership on Mondays, low on Friday. So they're coming in, they're staying here, and then they're going back on Friday because they don't want to come and go. I don't know if that's part of Trump's thing, or it's because of the violence
On the violence across?
It's probably what's going on.
Well, that's part of the thing that's causing
They
it.
would come and go
Every
every
day.
day. And now it's like that one person that
Comes
was
back.
canceling those 5 days you no longer have.
I'm on 83 by 6:30, and I usually see the Santa Rita bus always,
But Santa Rita's always has got ridership.
Yes.
so that side has not decreased.
No.
Anything else? No. Okay. The only thing I believe that we were going to be pending was the approval of minutes. We would table that one for the next meeting. Is that right,
None
Attorney?
of the motions, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I did have a question on,
Yes, sir.
I know I keep harping on the budget, but we did discuss with Mr. Rosas as far as being able to get more of a detail, I understood that it's public knowledge, so would it be okay for us to actually get that information on the next meeting, or I can seek it out personally, but I'm not sure that's what the committee would. That won't best serve the committee if I look for it personally, but can we provide it in the next packet? I don't know what the next steps
Mr.
are.
Reyes?
Yes, yeah, we can provide the line items.
But was it for that, or do you just wanted a breakdown on the current reports that we're providing?
Actually, this is the update that we get, this is the actual, so just the line.
So basically you wanted a breakdown on this actual report?
Yes,
and those items-
One clarification,
Correct.
basically.
Right, in other words,
Right?
what makes up, as, what's not confidential, obviously, we don't want to see anyone's salary,
I
but,
believe the budget itself is online.
well, that was my question,
It's online for the entire city. Any department, they're all there online.
So we can go online and check it out.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just letting you all know that it is
Okay,
online.
it is online.
It's public information, like Mr. Rosa already stated.
But is it possible for us to get it on the next one? Could it be possible? Por favor? Like to make a motion on that?
absolutely, I can make a motion to, a breakdown of the update, in our next packet for our
Yeah.
next meeting.
We have a motion, we have a second by Mr. Kazen. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Can we get a motion to accept the staff reports that were given to us? Or would you like, we can continue on, or we can accept them if you had time to read them. We can go ahead and accept them as is. Your call, committee.
question I had,
Yes, sir.
and it's my own deal. On the fixed route, it's showing that we are declining the number of wheelchair boardings. In April, at 353, July 240, August 200. But is that a trend that we're seeing, or is that just normal progression? And does that correlate with an increase in the paratransit service?
On that, I would have to check. And I can let you respond on the next meeting.
And really, it was just,
Porque todavía lo que falta,
right?
oh, May, June?
May, June.
Yeah, June, yeah.
Oh, May,
May, June,
yeah,
we didn't have
that's
any
why we didn't have that
information.
info.
Right. But remember, that was the.
That was the time of the computer were down.
Yeah.
So we can't really
Yeah.
see how much the drop was, maybe
There was no
slowly
comparison.
started to drop.
Yeah, what I'm
I
wondering,
guess summer was a lot more harder.
well, some of it definitely are.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering if it's a decrease in fixed route correlates to an increase in paratransit.
I mean, we have been slowly getting an increase in ridership on the paratransit for sure, but I wouldn't necessarily want to say if I'm not sure if it's necessarily that.
Yeah, I can double check on the reports
And
on
we
the
can bring that
GFI.
back.
Yeah, just to see.
Yeah, I'll verify those numbers for others.
Yes.
Anybody else? Let's go ahead.
Really good question.
Anything?
That's
Mr. Casey?
I'm good.
Mr.
Because this is
Sanchez?
one of the few times you'll hear me quiet.
Mr. Sanchez, any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Geiser's not here.
I'm good, thanks.
Who replaces Mr. Geiser?
So should we make a motion to accept the reports as is,
So moved.
without any further discussion?
It's been moved by Mr. Casey.
I move, is there a second?
Second by Mr. Gomez.
Mr. Sanchez.
Mr. Sanchez, I'm sorry. Any questions?
All for questions.
Oh, wait.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it's because I barely got to looking at this page.
Is it on the minutes or?
Oh, which one?
Oh, okay, the first page. Okay.
Just a quick question, I guess. We already spent 2 hours here, so I might as well just get this question out of the way.
Sure.
I saw the cancellation reports. Is that the client cancels on the bus, or is that?
Which one? Because it's the cancellation's the total on the top, and then there's a whole breakdown as to the.
Yeah. I see the ridership, right? And then there's a total calculation of 612. And then, so those calculations are from who?
Those,
Like from the riders?
the riders are canceled, most of them, if not, you're gonna see cancel where?
Oh, okay, cancel at door, cancel from
Right.
dispatch, client, it's not ready. But that's a really, okay.
But that's from the 84 no-shows that you got. Okay, but this is also by ride, it's not by rider.
It's per trip. So let's say you set up, so you can set up to 4 trips. So let's say you set up 4 trips, you cancel all 4. So
Is
it's
there a way
already
that
4
you guys
trips.
can show us that on this? Like what you're telling me instead of explaining it?
Sure. I guess we check. I guess we check how we can break it
That's what
down.
your system does now. The old
Because
system
it is
would show
per
that.
trip. So I would check with our mobility manager.
Because there was 612 cancellations,
In
right?
total.
Mhm.
But out of those, like, the rider canceled or the person driving to
Oh,
them?
no,
No, the driver doesn't cancel, those are the riders.
That's the first, yeah, so
Right.
that's what we're
Right.
saying. So I guess the
Right.
breakdown is here, so out of those 612,
Okay,
190 were 24 hours in advance from the customer. I guess maybe we can add the wording from client.
right, so that's like 7% of the total cancellations.
And then late cancellations were 308, which means they weren't canceled 24 hours in advance. And then out of those, then we had 84 no-shows, and then it's broken down. Out of those 84 no-shows, you had 48 canceled at the door when the driver arrived, the customer canceled.
Okay,
Cancel from dispatch means once the driver arrived, maybe the client never came out. So dispatch will, okay, it's been past the 5 minutes, the time we wait, go ahead and proceed. Or maybe the customer just called, hey, I don't want to go, the driver's outside, tell him to leave. Pretty much, those are cancel at the doors. Other client not ready, self-explanatory, no answer. We'll try to give the customer a call before our driver leaves. We couldn't make contact with the client, so we follow our policies and procedures, and then we go ahead and proceed. A no-show from dispatch, pretty much the same thing. We couldn't get a hold of them, and no reason given was just one. And then at the end, you have the IVR, which is the automated phone system that calls you a day before and then 30 minutes before. So when it calls you, it gives you an option, press 1 to cancel, I'm not sure how it is. So they go ahead and cancel from there, and then they'll cancel on the system. So all those make up the 612. Should make up the 612. That's the breakdown of the cancellations.
Can you, I'm sorry, the cancel at door, how does that work?
When the driver arrives, whether the client comes out or calls like, hey, the driver's here, I'm just not going.
Oh, okay.
And just.
I guess we call it at the door since the driver's already there for you. So it's pretty much cancel at location, I guess you would say.
And I don't know if you were with us already, Ms. Coyle, I don't recall exactly, but because we saw those, and we have discussed this before, that, too many cancellations at door, stuff like that, wasting, of course, the fuel, the time, letting somebody else off, out of a ride. We asked, I believe it was brought up to see if we could send, like a little love letter, hey, you're cutting, you're canceling too many times. I believe we went with, what was it, 4?
We had 4 at one point to get the warning, or not warning, but a reminder.
And we did, I think we did send out, remember, we didn't have a mass.
Was it best, but then we stopped, remember?
Yes, because we sent out a reminder, and then the cancellations, they go down. Remember, we were hitting up to 1,000 cancellations, so they did slowly go down after we sent that letter.
More than that. I think it was more than 1,000.
So at that time, that's when we started looking at it real seriously, that people were just not responding well
Not
to the
responding.
service.
Well, and I think it really amounted to some people that just said, hey, I want for the next 2 weeks, I want to schedule these things. And then it's like, well, no. Or, I don't need the next 2 weeks. They only needed like 1 or 2. And then,
All our medical, our dialysis, all of those clienteles, they have, first.
With public transportation, there is no such thing as you're going to medical or your dialysis.
We didn't recall me if I'm correct, but that was a priority
No,
back then.
That's an ADA.
Back then it was, we had
No,
dialysis.
as per ADA, we cannot, let's say Ms. Centeno's going to the doctor and he's going to, I don't know, the movies. If he calls first, he gets his.
It's first come, first
Yes,
served.
first call for serve. It's not, oh, this is medical, we can't.
Yeah, we're not medical transportation, so
I think I know what you're alluding to, or you're saying, and I believe that there were some people who had a misconception that it was only a certain type of service.
Yes, because of the fact that I remember when I used to do the what were they called?
Appointments,
The appointments. No. When we did the people did the
manifest.
the manifest. Thank you. Every day, we would see like, and I'll use myself as an example. Juan Avila goes to dialysis that he gets picked up at 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday. That was Avila's appointment, and so we would schedule them automatically. We wouldn't schedule nobody else there because they were going straight to dialysis.
No, those are permanent.
Oh yeah, we had talked about that, and we mentioned we can only have a certain capacity of permanent clients, but then it goes back to the same thing. It doesn't matter if he's
It's dialysis or it's college or it's.
It's going on. It's
they
going
get the
on.
same
First come, first served.
Yes, it's still going to first come, first served.
Yeah, we used to have a report that would tell us how many rides are going for this, how many rides for that. And then when they.
It was requested as a one-time report, I do remember.
But this was before that. This is a few years before that. And then what happened is when they came in to do an ADA audit, they basically said, no, everything is, it's just, it is what it is.
Any further discussion? I know we've been here a little longer than what we thought.
It wasn't my fault. I wasn't here.
Nah, you're good.
I'm not sure.
Any further discussion? Can we have a motion to accept the reports, please? As so presented?
Or you did have the motion, and you had the second, you just need the, yes, the votes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I would like to do something different today and just.
So is that, I'm sorry to interrupt, so is that the adjournment? That way, whatever you're gonna say can go on?
No, we haven't adjourned yet. But before we adjourn, I would like to say that I just want to add something to our next meetings that, as y'all know, how many violence is out there. I would like for our parliamentarian to please start us off next time on a word of prayer. We're having too much violence out there. We need, and Mr. Sanchez, if lead us off next time also in the Pledge of Allegiance. We need to look forward, and I would like for us to take a moment of time of silence. There's just too much violence out there right now, and what I'm worried about is that violence, like they just stated, it's heading this way. Sooner or later, it's coming this way, and we just need to, assure ourselves and assure that, we pray for one another. We might not always be on the same boat, but we all live in the same city, and we should help and pray for each other because we are in a drug war zone.
It's happening.
It's happening. So, on our next meeting, I would like to just stir it up a little bit, if y'all don't mind, and if anybody, yes, sir.
No, like it's up to the committee.
It's up to y'all if we can do that. I would ask y'all to please, help me out with that, in that matter.
I would recommend that it would be a moment of silence. Should it be a silent prayer of everyone's
Each and
choosing?
every way.
So
That's the only thing I recommend also, just to keep it,
A moment of
just like
silence.
council, as a moment of silence before the meeting, and that's what y'all please to do, then
That's what I would prefer, so everyone can individually.
That should help.
A moment of introspection.
Agreed.
If that's true.
So I guess it would be, I mean, it really wouldn't be a motion because it doesn't have to be an agenda item, but just y'all to agree on before the meeting starts, have your moment. You call the moment of silence just like the mayor does, and doesn't really have to be a motion because it doesn't have to be added to the agenda or anything. It's just,
Okay.
just clarification for
So, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Actually, I had a comment, and I apologize, I got here late. I had to attend with my daughter to school, to a school event. She's a senior, and I have to make sure she gets all the information she needs so she can hopefully
Get those
go to the
scholarships?
college that she wants to attend. So my apologies for being late. So that's one thing. The other recommendation that I have, and now I'll direct it to Mr. Avila, our new chairman, in reference to actual committee members' actions to lead this committee and this transit system into compliance. So I don't know if we can add an item where maybe the different members can, give us some advice, recommendations, or not a report, but, some conversation as to what your communication is with your council member, if you have any recommendations coming back to the transit system that can help us, implement. Because as part of the committee, we have to receive advice from you all. And right now, we're more than glad to provide as much information as you request, and we'll continue to do that. But at some point in time, my opinion is that we're spending a lot of time on the details, and again, my opinion is we really need to open it up more to action items from the actual committee members, and following up with actions to our council members. And this last budget session was a reflection of a lot of support from council and management toward the transit system. So we are at a point where we're getting a lot of momentum, a lot of traction, and not only words, but actual funding coming our way. So in order for us to maintain that, we need the support and obviously the leadership from you all to reflect that to the community. The transit system it's moving forward. We're implementing these different things because really only a few selected people know exactly what we're working on. I mean, and believe me, we're working really hard in getting those dollars and getting the support from council engaging with MPO. And for the first time in years, we're actually receiving funding from the MPO. For the first time in years, we're implementing a new service, which is the circulator. We're actually doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're providing that connectivity, that added mobility, pulling the people out of the neighborhoods into maybe the shopping centers, the work centers, and helping them connect faster to the universities, in this case TAMU or LC. So we're doing all these different things, but sometimes we get the feeling that it's not getting out. The community really doesn't know what we're doing for them, what we're trying to do. So we rely on you all to hopefully feed that back to the different council members and get their input. I mean, as to what else can we do, what sort of advice they have for us. So I'm not sure whether we want to have an item for that, or how do we move forward as to the committee giving us advice, leadership as to what else, what else we need to do. We're going to have the technical aspect of it, reports, comprehensive plan, and all that good stuff. And that we're going to do.
I guess I'll add to that. Maybe we can add it how Mr. Escobar had mentioned last time. Maybe have each member mention their goals as to what it is. Discuss like what they want to bring forward, and maybe we can add an item.
Maybe we can
member discussion of goals or something to that effect.
So like earlier in the meeting, we spent an hour discussing like what our scope was with the paratransit. And it's something we talked to legal about on like, okay, well, we can conduct special surveys, but the staff you guys are the ones that work with the people that actually conduct the survey. So we were talking about how we can actually get, how we can get some input in that without overstepping any boundaries. So that's something we talked about for the special surveys, which I think is where the programs can come in. We also talked about having more public events, and we're going to be going up to council. So we're going to be talking to council about social media. So we really do feel that like advocating through these people's stories, people that are actually using, paratransit, will bring more life to it, and it'll bring those things that you say, okay, well, we need to see something happening. I think it'll come from the people, but we just need to find a way to get to them, like you said.
Because we need to get to them in order for them to respond.
Well, I agree with you. It's a long meeting, but I wanted to throw that out. We need to move on to more, engaging with you all, and we try to provide as much information, but I think at some point that we're missing the actual advice and the actual leadership from, for you to tell us what you want us to move on. There are certain things that we have to do. I mean, regardless, we have to do them. So compliance, the service, the budgeting, those things we're doing. That's our duty. So the next thing will be the engaging with the community and things like that. So, and that obviously you're two volunteers, so you've been appointed to this committee, so we cannot dictate what you can do in your own time. But we'll be really interested on finding out, what you are doing as members of the committee to promote, to assist, to help us, especially with the funding part, because that's where we really need the extra help. So maybe next meeting we can discuss more as to how to formalize it, I guess. So.
It is something we did discuss, but I do feel the same way. I feel that we do need to have, like, it's more of a system in place of like, okay, this is what we're going to be doing from now on. Like you said, it's like every person can bring something to the table. The way I look at it, and I'm just going to put it out there because we're here, is I would like to hear more about the goals that the staff already has. So some of the stuff that you mentioned most of the time is like, I always take notes on that because those are the goals that you guys are having for, quarterly or annually. And I feel that we can enforce that, or like you said, bring in, some light to it, to councilmen, and bring in more funding or something, programs. So I do feel like we both need to work together to create those things, but I do feel like we should leave it for the next meeting.
Yeah, to set up some priorities, so we're not trying to tackle a lot and then, we don't. So maybe setting up priorities as to what is it that we're gonna tackle first. But
How much
the next
laptime,
meeting,
how much laptime do you think we need, and this goes for the committee members' question, for us to set up a goal and bring it back so we can send something on the
I
agenda?
mean, y'all can have a discussion and y'all decide by tomorrow. Chairman, shoot me an email and it can be added to the agenda.
Okay.
Every item doesn't necessarily have to be a motion. You can add it. If the committee's in
Right.
favor, you can add it like, hey, we discussed this, we want this on the agenda. Shoot me an email and we'll go ahead and add it to the agenda.
We just-
Yes, good morning.
The only thing I'd like to caution people on is that.
Not the group chat, but,
Yeah.
but if you guys mention it to me,
One-on-one.
shoot me an email or
Yeah,
one-on-one.
One-on-one, but then that's fishy though.
Yeah.
The ethics committee, oh, and I have my paperwork, I'll give it to you on the way out. I have my certificate to
It's,
give it to you.
Yeah, 'cause
or
even
maybe
then-
each member can just email
1100
Gustavo
is
directly.
this Houston?
These are my three
Yeah, Houston
suggestions
Street.
for
I guess I'll compile
priorities,
and
and then you'll discuss it here.
Thank you.
We still have to kind of.
Little research on that,
Okay,
Because of
well,
the
just to
open
make
maybe
sure,
next-
just to make sure we're on the, we don't,
Yeah.
you know, break any.
The open meetings, the way everything.
And since we're on the discussion for the adjournment, I don't know if I mentioned it to everyone, but just to introduce, I know I was telling y'all as y'all were walking in, but this is Ms. Aguilar, she's gonna be taking over the PAC liaison. I'll probably be here for about 2 more meetings, and then it's her show over. But she'll be shadowing us for now, just trying to get a feel for it and slowly getting into it. It's still gonna be Mrs. Esparza's welcoming, but she'll be the new liaison.
You sure you wanna stay after you've had your first meeting?
Yeah, after this is
Yes.
Well, welcome to the PAC
Thank you.
committee.
No, I get it. That's
You know,
fine.
don't run away from us.
We won't make you run away, don't worry.
Okay? No, we won't do that.
Just an introduction. We'll mention it to the members as they keep coming in, get familiarized. Give her y'all's emails and maybe y'all can start sending her the emails, just copy me while she's still in training and so she can start getting more of a feel
Can you
for
send
it.
us an email? Can
Yes,
you
I'll go ahead and send everyone
send us
their
your email and then we'll just make
Then
that.
you can start sending them directly to her, just make sure to copy me, or she'll mention it to me, and that way we can start getting her a little bit more involved without me leaving the community and her not really getting a feel for everything that it is.
Sounds
If
like
y'all
a
can
plan,
help
sir.
us with that too, try to get communication through her.
I just call, is it street here, Washington? I mean,
Yes.
Houston?
That's Houston.
That's Houston Street.
Houston.
Right here in front of the city hall, that's Houston.
It's Houston, right? Okay, I called for the rest of the town to pick me
So
up.
that's my end of the discussion, whatever y'all want
Thank you.
to vote.
Motion to adjourn?
There you go, motion to adjourn.
There's a second.
There's a second. Any opposed? All in favor?
Should I vote no?
7:50.
We are adjourned. Thank you to everybody.
To the office?
Yes.
I'll text you first. Phone me like that.
No, I went to, I was supposed to be at the county. I missed the county meeting.
Is this your turn or is
En la ya, teníamos el county ahora también. Sí.
Did you get the text?
No, but I missed it right now. I have to call him tomorrow.
And that person, so that in case you're trying to.